How's it going, guys, and welcome back to Drop Clutch Garage. Today we're going to hit up part number 2 of the air conditioning conversion installation with our old air product system. Part 2 we're going to include mostly the interior stuff as well as the hose bits. So we're going to get this main box installed underneath the dash, adapt our cable controls to be able to operate that, and then run our lines through our heater core as well as the compressor and condenser. So let's get started. All right, guys, first thing we're gonna get started with are the fresh air block off plates. These are gonna cover the fresh air outlets underneath the dash on both the driver and passenger side. Looks like we've got 3 screws, self-tappers that are included. What's nice is it's all bagged together. So we'll go ahead and get these installed first before the main box, because these will be more difficult to get to with that installed. We have a nice thick adhesive gasket on there, so that'll kind of hold it up in place while we get our screws drilled through. So I'll go ahead and install these in the dash, guys, underneath the dash, and we'll get on to our main box unit. You see, guys, there is the block off plate in place. I just have it kind of held up there by that sticky gasket. I'll go ahead and drive those screws in and then do the driver's side, and we'll be all set with those. And there we are with our 3 screws installed on that block off plate. Okay, guys, our next step is going to be attaching the mounting bracket here to the main unit. So here we have our main unit fully unboxed, and then we have our mounting bracket here. And this is the hardware that came with it, all in the same bag, which again is super nice. So go ahead and get this properly oriented on the main unit and go ahead and get it installed. All right, guys, we have these standoffs here that align with these nut inserts. And then we have our bolts and flat washers that come with the kit. So we're gonna mock this up and get it loosely fitted up under the dash. These studs go through the firewall and the factory location of our heater blower. And once we have that mocked up, we still need to drill a hole, mark and drill a hole through the firewall for the drain tube. That's gonna be at the bottom of the unit right here. We're gonna need to mark where this comes to the firewall and drill that out. It says we need 1.25 inch hole through there. Rather large, but I'm pretty sure it'll come with a grommet as well. Now that those are all tight, we'll go ahead and remove these nuts and washers, feed it through underneath the dash, and then get our hole marked for our drain hole. All right, you can see we're not sitting perfectly flush now. That's because the drain tube is impeding with the fitment on the firewall. So I'll go ahead and show you guys that. All right, guys, you can see the drain tube right there coming in contact with the firewall. That's what we're gonna mark and go ahead and drill that hole. So we'll go ahead and remove the box, get that hole drilled, and then we'll be able to install the box permanently. All right, folks, you can see I got the hole drilled out. I went ahead and deburred it already. Go ahead and throw a little paint on it so it doesn't get any rust. After that, I'm gonna clean up the rest of this firewall here and throw on the rest of the sound deadening material all the way up to the top before I permanently install the main unit. All right, guys, so we have that hole drilled for the drain tube. It came with this grommet to put through the firewall, and then this is our actual drain tube. So we'll get this grommet installed before we go ahead and install the entire unit. We also have to install this guy before we install the unit as well. So let's get this grommet in first and then go from there. All right, guys, we can see our grommet is installed in our 1.25 inch hole, and I got the rest of that sound deadener in place as well. Next, we have to feed the thermostat capillary sensor through the small hole in the top lip of the large inlet air opening. So if we look, it has this little label here. You can pull out this little plastic piece and that's where they want us to insert this tube from the thermostat. Just like you can tell in that picture, kind of. Not the best quality pictures there. I got a little better pictorial right here. It already comes mounted on this little vent. And this mounts on top of the unit like so. All right guys, you can see there's a little hole at the top to fit that tube through. And then we're gonna run a 90-degree and insert it into the fins 2 inches in. Went ahead and measured 2 inches of the end of the tube here and put a 90 in it. I'll go ahead and remove this plastic piece and shove that tube into the fins and see how much access we have left to be able to shut the grill. All right guys, you can see I have it inserted into the fins about 2 inches, and it says to coil up the access inside, so that way you can shut the grill. All set in place with our cover on. All right folks, now we got our drain tube installed in the bottom of the unit. It is now ready to install into the car. So go ahead and get this up into the car. We'll insert the drain tube through that grommet first, and then get our bolts started. All right guys, we have it installed into the car. As you can see, we'll loosely install the hardware and then get this grommet in place before we go ahead and torque it down. We got our grommet installed guys. Now we go ahead and torque down all 4 of those mounting bolts. I might want to use a little bit of grease or some type of lubricant around the tubes here, just to make sliding this grommet over all 4 of these tubes a little easier. It is quite a bit to fit it all over. These are super long studs. Definitely will probably trim those off because it looks a little ridiculous. All right guys, we now have to attach this coil to one of the evaporator core lines, and then we have to also wrap it with insulation. So you can see there it comes with that metal clip to attach it to the actual evaporator core line, and this is the insulation we have to go ahead and wrap it with. Simple as that, job done. Let's go on to the next. All right guys, so we're gonna work on setting up our controls now. I already have removed knobs from our old switch panel. We're gonna have to integrate this new micro switch. I also went ahead and purchased a new faceplate for the controls, so it looks fresh and clean. This one's a bit pitted, so we're gonna get started with that. And now we're gonna unbolt it from the back, pull these cables and bracketry off, transport that to the new faceplate, and then get this micro switch installed. All right guys, we can see how our new micro switch panel here is gonna fit over our old controls, utilizing those same 2 bolt holes. And then this is gonna go through the face and secured with those factory same 2 bolts. I also believe it comes with new hardware as well. Probably utilize that. We discard the old switch. So go ahead and get this bolted up to our new face and hope we don't scratch it. I'll probably tape the other side so we don't do so. All right guys, this is our new switch panel installed to our new faceplate. I did have to remove this top switch for the blower motor while installing this piece because it all wouldn't fit through the faceplate at once. Once the faceplate was then secured, I could then fit in the blower motor switch and we're good to go. Guys, our next step, we're gonna be removing the factory cables here and installing the ones that are provided with the kit, along with the new hardware that they provide as well. I think we're only gonna be utilizing 2 of these levers now. I'm gonna go ahead and remove these guys, install the new ones, and then I'll show you how that all looks. Alrighty guys, according to the instructions, they want us to install this wiring harness before the cables. So what we did is that main plug goes to the blower. Quite difficult to push that thing onto the terminals. Might be best idea to do that before installing it so you don't twist up the bracket at all. And then we have the black wire coming off of that. Goes to the bottom of the micro switch. We have the brown one picking up this ground right here on the faceplate. And then the blue one going to the bottom terminal on the micro switch. Those are all the wiring connections on this piece itself. And then we'll proceed to installing our cables. So we got our first cable attached. The instructions do say the longest provided cable will go onto the heater control, which is the lever all the way to the left. That's gonna activate this micro switch when switched on, the lever comes this way, depresses that micro switch. The kit does come with new clamps there and hardware to utilize. And then we just have one more cable to attach. The shorter one goes on the cable furthest to the right. This one here, we'll get that attached, and then we'll get this whole assembly installed in the car. Hey guys, I'd like to take a quick second here to ask you to please subscribe to the channel. I do have a few more exciting projects around the corner. Also, if you're interested in car memes and car content like you see here on your screen, go check out Drop Clutch Garage's Instagram account, also on Facebook and TikTok. So we got some more content coming your way via those channels. But let's get right back to the action and finish up this air conditioning install. So we have the controls installed into the dash. And if you come around here to behind the dash, you'll see this nut right here. So you have the stud that comes through, and then you have this block that normally grabs the dash. And as you tighten down this nut, it'll draw that up and tighten it. So the new blower motor switch is much larger and mounts in a different position than the original one, and it does come into contact with this standoff here. I did have to shave that side down to be able to fit this on, and then had to bend this switch up out of the way while I tighten this nut, and then I'll have to bend it back down. So understand that you're gonna have to make some modifications to how you secure this plate. So I believe this will work. Once I get this nut tight, I'll then bend this back down and we'll be good to go. Now that we have our controls and cables installed, we're gonna go ahead and start attaching our cables. In the full up position of your defrost knob, those baffles there should be open, and then all the way down closes them. So that's how you want to adjust that cable right there. Once you got it set, tighten it down, and we'll move on to the next one. Alrighty guys, that next cable that we have to run is for the heater valve, which is located right here. We're going to utilize that hole that's already existing into the firewall there, run the cable through there, and then we have the provided hardware to clamp it down on this right here. We'll make sure it adjusts properly to a full open and full close before we tighten that down. So go ahead and start by routing that cable through and then actuating it with the lever inside the car to make sure we're getting full open and close. Okay guys, so now we're hitting a critical time in which we need to cut our hoses to length. I got them routed, I think exactly where I want them, as less intrusive as possible in the engine bay. I wanted to keep it as clean as possible, so I'm gonna route this line from the condenser, come up over here and kind of follow this wiring harness over into the firewall, and then same thing with this guy from the compressor. We'll loop that around into that top fitting right there, and then this little guy goes here to the top of the condenser. So I'm gonna kind of sneak up on it and kind of trim them just a little bit at a time. That way I can figure out exactly how much of a bend I want to put right here. If I take too much off, it's gonna really pull that whole hose over this way. So I want to keep it snug to the inner fender and snug to the firewall. All right guys, now that we have our lines cut, I'm gonna go ahead and mark them with this paint pen right here. So that way, when I take them in to get crimped, they'll still be in the proper, they'll still be clocked in the proper orientation for everything. Because it's not like a swivel joint or anything like that. Once it's crimped down, it's set. So go ahead and mark this one. And we got 2 over there, I believe we got to mark as well. No, 1 over there and 1 down here. Alrighty guys, next we are going to be mounting this box underneath the dash here. It comes apart, we got 2 bolts on top and 2 screws on the bottom. These bolts are the same bolts that are gonna hold it into the dash. So I went ahead and used this as a template. I'll show you inside here real quick. We have made some masking tape down underneath the dash. As you can see, got it all centered with the radio opening. And then I measured using my square here to get an equal distance from the edge of the dash out. So we got it centered from left to right, and we got our depth centered. Now the kit does not provide you with any belts, so you'll have to measure yourself to figure out exactly what size belts you need. I used some 12 gauge wire wrapped around the pulley and measured the distance. One thing I had to do, this is the belt tensioner pulley here. You adjust the tension of the belt with the opening wrench, and you can move it, and then you cinch down this bolt right there to hold that position and hold tension on the belt. As you can see, I did have to make some clearance on that because the way it was contacting the radiator hose, and it was quite a sharp point on it, so I didn't want over time vibration to wear a hole through my radiator hose. So I did grind quite a bit off and then repainted it all depends on if you're running power steering or not, what kind of power steering, your entire belt setup, if you'll have to do that or not. All right guys, last but not least, we are going to wire up this complete system here. We already got all the wiring attached to our controls on the dash. The diagram here is fairly good and semi-accurate. A lot of the colors coming out of this relay are different, at least in my kit, from what they actually sent. So maybe it was an update in the harness and they hadn't updated their instructions yet. But besides that, it's pretty simple. We have our pressure switch mounted down there on the AC line coming from the condenser. In between that pressure switch is going to be our compressor and the thermostat control, which is mounted on our complete HVAC box. So we can see these green wires here coming off the pressure switch. One goes through the firewall into the thermostat. The other is going to loop around right here. You can see it here. And it attaches into the compressor. You can see I got that line coming over here. And I made it serviceable so you can disconnect it right here if you ever need to replace or remove the compressor. As you guys may notice, I am using a standard clutch fan on the radiator. I'm not quite sure if that's going to be enough for the air conditioning system, so what I did is I added a fan on the condenser here. Pretty well hidden. Once you know the entire grill is going to be on, you're not really going to see it because again the bumper goes over this bit here. I'm going to wire it in with a relay. I'm thinking I'm going to use my compressor as the trigger wire for the relay to then kick on the fan. So basically every time the compressor clutch is activated, that fan will be on. I'm going to definitely test it once I get everything running to see if it actually makes any difference. If it doesn't, we'll discard it. If it makes a difference, we'll go ahead and keep it on there. I'll also test different triggering options to see what will work best. All right guys, so that's the thermostat that we earlier connected. You can see that the part of the harness has to connect to the top of that. And I did have to remove this so I can access that and get those connected. So before you install this box, go ahead and connect those two green wires to your thermostat so you don't have to deal with this later on. All right guys, so this is our harness that plugs into the HVAC box here. We have a ground that we're going to attach to the dash here. The other end of this harness here comes out into the relay right here, where we're going to have a key on positive, and then the other wires are the ones that go up to the blower switch that we already have installed into the dash. So folks, all we have left to do is tie into our key ignition on power and then attach our ground, and we're good to go. All right guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video right here. We went ahead and finished installing our AC conversion kit. So this is part 2 of the series here. If you didn't see the first video, I'll go ahead and link it down below so you can see the beginning of the installation. You can see we're getting pretty close here, finishing this up completely here, getting this thing on the road, which is super exciting because I've never driven it. It's been in pieces from the get-go. I'd like to thank you all for watching this video. Go ahead and subscribe, like it, and share it if you would, if you could. That'd be epic. I'd really appreciate it. And we got some more videos to come, guys. We're gonna be painting this thing ruby red, finishing up all the wiring and all the interior. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.